This is Director Victor Byrd. The meeting of the Oklahoma Aeronautics Commission is being video conference and teleconference. 5 commissioners are attending the meeting remotely by way of video conference. The time is now 10 a.m. and the 5 commissioners, as I have stated, are participating by way of video conference. The meeting will be monitored to ensure that each commissioner is audible to each other and the public. If any audio connection is lost or interrupted, the meeting will be stopped until the connection is restored. If the audio connection is not restored within 30 minutes, the meeting will be deemed adjourned at the time the connection was lost and shall be reconvened at 1:30 p.m. today. An audio connection cannot be restored at that time. It shall be reconvened on May 21st, 2020, tomorrow at 10 a.m. If the audio connection is not restored at this time within 30 minutes, there will be another attempt to reconvene the meeting at 1:30 on May the 21st, and this pattern will repeat until an audio connection is restored. This meeting shall be electronically recorded. Documents and materials reviewed by or relied upon by the commissioners during this meeting are available at our website, www.oac.ok.gov, and they may be found in the upper right-hand side of our homepage. The notice for this meeting has been filed and the agenda has been posted in compliance with the Open Meeting Act as amended this legislative session by Senate Bill 661, which allows meetings by way of teleconference and video conference. Mr. Chairman, we are ready to begin.
Very good. This is Chairman Dave Amos, and want to bring this meeting to order. And with that, I've got my trusty gavel here. We're now in order, and we are in compliance with the Open Meeting Act. Our meeting notice has been filed and the agenda has been posted. And with that, Andrea, would you please call the roll?
First Congressional District, Commissioner Kevin Potter.
Here.
Second Congressional District, Commissioner David Conway.
Here.
5th Congressional District, Commissioner Dave Amos.
Here.
At-large Commissioner Jim Putnam.
Here.
At-large Commissioner Jerry Hunter.
Here.
I also wanted to announce that 3rd Congressional District Commissioner Mike Ray and 4th Congressional District Commissioner Lindy Ritz are unable to attend today's meeting. We have a quorum. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Item 3 is the approval of the minutes. I need a motion.
I so move.
I second it. It's David Conroy.
Great, thank you. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Potter.
Aye.
Commissioner Conway.
Aye.
Commissioner Amos.
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam.
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Item 4 is the director's report. Mr. Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, commissioners. I hope you're all doing well. The first item is one you've been bringing them out a little bit. I think we have, as some of us this morning, we're experiencing that our suits are a little bit tighter. But we have, as you know, been teleworking since March the 16th. One thing I'd like to note about that for you is I think we all can be very proud of our staff. We have continued to serve our constituents, the public. Since our last meeting on April the 22nd, we have resumed airport inspections. Aviation Program Manager Nick Young is out doing that. We have from the beginning done final inspections on construction projects. Ben Nagavi, our airport engineer, has been doing that. We continue to process applications under the Aircraft Pilot and Passenger Protection Act, check compliance with the law protecting military training airspace, and anemometer towers. So we have and processing aviation education grants applications and checking those for compliance, the grants you handed out last year in that regard. So we have, I would have to say, we have successfully teleworked. We are planning on a return to the physical office on June. That's going to be a phased in approach, consistent with the governor's open up and recover safely plan, abbreviation IRS, CDC guidelines, State Department of Health directives in this regard. Chris has been, I think that's been a full-time job to be up to snuff on all those things. He has prepared draft guidelines. It's a little more complicated than you might think, although I know some of you are experiencing this as well. Things like masks, et cetera, some of the things the airlines are struggling with right now. And ours may be a little more because of the fact that we park in a parking garage and we have to access the elevator, which there's quite a few more people. There's a few little more risks that we're going to try to mitigate those as much as we possibly can. And we will, of course, be very cognizant and very respectful of any underlying health conditions of staff. Number one in this, and most important, is the health, safety, and welfare of our staff. And I know you appreciate that as well. But the target, and we intend to do it, is on June the 1st. Cleaning supplies are a little hard to come by, but I know Chris is working on that. And I appreciate very much all he's done in this regard. Chris has also been tuning into the Society for Human Resource Management, which has been very helpful. Many state members of that organization he joined as well. I think it's about $200 a year, and it's well worth the price. Next item is Oklahoma airport grants under the Federal CARES Act. We talked about the Federal CARES Act, which passed March, signed into law by the president on March the 27th. We talked about that at our last meeting on April the 22nd. As you know, $42 million was made available to the 99 NIPIAS airports, federal system airports that are in our state system. Will Roger, the commercial service, got the lion's share of this. That was the main purpose of the airport relief in the bill. You all will remember airport relief wasn't even in the bill originally as it was being contemplated on Capitol Hill and by the administration. Appreciate very much our delegation, Senator Inhofe, Senator Langford, and our House members all supporting that airport relief. Oklahoma City, Will Rogers is going to receive $22 million. Tulsa's $15.5 million. Lawton and Stillwater are each a little over $1 million. Aviation airports, which there's not a lot left. We'll talk about that again in a minute. GA airports need more relief, but they are entitled. It's based upon the National Asset Study or Classification Scheme of the FAA for general aviation airports. Unclassified airports, like three we're going to talk about a little later, Deputy Director Ardies will be talking to you about that. They're eligible for $1,000 a piece. And that's like our state park airports, Carlton Landing, otherwise known as Arrowhead, Lake Texoma, and Fountainhead. Our basic airports are eligible for $20,000 a piece. Our local airports are eligible for $30,000 a piece. That's like Bristow. Our regional airports, like Max Westheimer, are eligible for $69,000 a piece. And we have two national airports in that classification scheme, Oklahoma City Wiley Post and Tulsa Riverside. They are each eligible for $152,000. I'm happy to report that as of right now, probably about 65% of our eligible airports have submitted applications for their grants. Probably about 50% of the eligible airports have received grant offers. They're even further along in the process as it's being followed by the FAA. At the end of the day, I'm very hopeful we'll have 100%. It's 100% money. There is no local match, no state match required, and it can be used for any lawful purpose. It is not your usual airport improvement program grant. So it can be used for operating expenses. It can be used to service bond debt. It was something we all pushed for, advocated for, and it has come as a real major source of help to airports who are struggling in the country. The next item is on the agenda is the status of aviation aerospace industry. I don't know that I need to talk to you all a lot about this. I think the public may want to know a little bit more about this. They certainly are reading about it. I'm going to focus on really the commercial air transport industry because that's really driving everything else. It's really rather astounding. Our major carriers are using between $300 and $400 million a day. American is hoping to lower its daily loss to 50 million by the end of June. Southwest is expecting to lose 30 to $35 million a day through June. It all has to do with passengers. Passenger count is down 94%. Half of the industry's 6,200 planes in North America are parked. Airlines, I'm still note this, very happy. They are fully intending to still invest their $500 million in the major work they have planned at their only heavy maintenance base in Tulsa. So that's something we can all really relish and take some real pleasure in. The Boeing CEO, I'm sure you all heard about this, has predicted that one airline will go out, will be either absorbed or go bankrupt. Delta's dropped 10 more airports in their network. They've cut their schedules by as much as 90%. It is really devastating. Perhaps best summed up by what the Southwest CEO, Gary Kelly, had to say is our goal is to thrive. The imperative here is to survive. I think that sums it up pretty well. In that right seat, along for this really not pleasant journey, are airports. I'm sure you well know with passenger count down 94%, airports just the revenues are plummeting by as much as 70%. And I do want to note, very importantly, that general aviation, business aviation operations are down 70%. So you are seeing the same thing at general aviation airports. That's why the need for airport relief, $10 billion in the CARES Act. There is additional efforts I'll talk about in a moment for more airport relief. And I think at some point that will happen. It may not be until there is a bill that's focused more on recovery in Congress than relief for the immediate pandemic. And that hopefully will include a major infrastructure package. Any questions about that? Okay, as I think most of you know, we partner with the Department of Commerce and local economic development all the time. We're probably working on about 4 or 5 or maybe even 6 projects, some that are top secret, maybe I don't know about right now in that regard. Some of our past ones that are public and rather notorious in a sense, that's very visible, was our $2.5 million investment to extend the run at initia. That was as much economic development as trying to accommodate their largest employer in the area, Vance Air Force Base. We also provided a grant to Oklahoma City Will Rogers about 2.5 years ago. That was for some work, some critical work done on the AAR, one of the AAR hangars out there, a big employer at the Oklahoma City Will Rogers. These are important partnerships, but we do the aviation trade shows, as you know. I have partnered with Congress for probably the last 20 years. What we may be most known for, the engineer tax credits for aerospace. I could not have done that without the Governor's Council for Workforce and Economic Development and the data and the economic impact studies that Commerce did as we pushed for that bill about 12 years ago. It's a good partnership and it continues to get better. we're working on several things right now. One of them being the next item, an emerging aviation technologies task force. This is, as you would probably surmise, we'll focus on things like unmanned aircraft systems, solar and battery powered aircraft, autonomous aerial taxis like eVTOL, otherwise known as urban air mobility vehicles, sense and avoidance technologies, alternative aviation fuels, vertiports, etc. Secretary Gatz about this, very excited to lend his help and support on this. Also going to work with Secretary Copeland and Commerce with respect to this. But in the main thing we want to do here is help the state put the best foot forward to foster an environment in which technologies like this can flourish. And Oklahoma will be the place to go. One of the important roles we think that this task force will play is to balance the interest between a desire to create this environment and the interest of protecting the public. Commissioners, that completes my report, and I would stand for any questions.
Questions?
I'm concerned about the airlines. The airlines don't seem to be doing much to help themselves, and the publicity about one of the major doctors on the president's staff getting infected with the COVID virus while flying on an airliner didn't seem to improve their business much. I'm also hearing if you want an empty seat, you have to buy it. So just some observations, but I'm facing a situation where I have to go up to the Seattle area to do the bury. I can't do a funeral for my mom, and not interested in flying right now. They're going to drive. I just think the risk is, at my age, is probably going to be a little too high in an airline.
The risk is awfully low if you're general aviation.
That's true. There's no darn general aviation airport anywhere on the east side.
I understand, Commissioner Putnam, that many passengers share your reservations. I would say, in fair, I think airlines are certainly, they need the passengers back badly. So many airlines have imposed the requirement to wear a mask, but all the legacy, the major carriers have. Taking temperature, Frontier began that probably a week or so ago. And the airlines are asking for, they would like a national standard. Right now it's a little up in the air, who's going to do what. The FAA is taking they're not going to do that. TSA they may be the ones taking the temperature. It's going to be very much very comparable to 9/11, how that changed the world of riding on a commercial airliner after 9/11. That's going to happen here. It already is happening. It's happening here. At some point, there'll be, I imagine, I believe, some kind of national standard to hopefully get folks like you back in the seats.
One thing that I'll agree with Commissioner Putnam about is the airlines are doing nothing to help themselves. Absolutely nothing. And I can tell you, because we've tried, and even the reservation people don't even want to help you. And so it's kind of frustrating. So it's just easier to go out and get in your own airplane and go fly. And even if it's complicated sometimes, but again, they need to do something to help themselves instead of waiting on the government and everybody else to help them. They need to do something with their own people and themselves. But again, we need to do what we can to help our maintenance base. I do know that. So
there probably won't be. That's something that probably the American taxpayer and Congress will mirror that. Probably won't be any more bailout available for the airlines. They got $25 billion. It's mainly for payroll. 70% of that is grants, 30% is loans. And then there is another $25 billion available for loans that the Treasury has not started the implementation and administration of that yet. But that is, I think even the airline industry knows that's probably it for airlines. I have no doubt you're going to see several regionals have already filed bankruptcy. And I think you may well see a merger of some sort between one or more of between the legacies, among the legacy carriers. It's a hard deal.
Okay, next item 5 is the legislative, congressional, and regulatory update. Director Byrd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Start with the state legislature. Obviously, no one planned on COVID-19 and the pandemic, and that certainly led to an abbreviated legislative session. Both houses stand in adjournment right now. They have not sine die adjourned, which is final adjournment as required by the Constitution. They are in adjournment, and they do not expect to come back in. So they've finished their work for the session. All of our legislation, which was alive at one time, that being Senate Bill 1157 to remove the cap on the aircraft excise tax, were received. Senate Bills 1489 and 1896, we refer to those as the Unmanned Aircraft Systems Development Act. Senate Bill 1461, which had to do with some very needed amendments to the engineer tax credits for aerospace, graduate students being unfairly and harshly treated by the language in that law and the interpretation by the tax commission. Senate Bill 1826, which had to do with enhanced air service at our commercial service airports and a program to hopefully enhance that, incentivize airlines. And Senate Bill 1553 to create an unmanned aircraft systems registry for state agencies and state agency Part 107 pilots. None of those made it. They're all. We'll try it again next session. Had good support in the Senate where they started, and probably the one I'm really most disappointed on, because I think it's probably the most critical, was the amendments to the engineer tax credits for aerospace. For all our friends out there in the unmanned aircraft system world, drones, I do want to say something, which probably this will be sweet music to your ears. Did you hear that, James Grimsley? I've had somewhat of an epiphany during this time with respect to unmanned aircraft systems. We hear a lot, citizens in our state, companies, businesses, concerned about their right to privacy. The right to privacy has not been abrogated by this new and dynamic technology, unmanned aircraft systems. But our right to privacy, should I say our reasonable expectation to a right to privacy, has certainly probably shrank over the years. And probably the biggest reason for that is this right here, this little device right here, my smartphone, much more so probably than drones. So I'm not really disappointed that Senate Bill 1489 and Senate Bill 1496 did not pass. I've visited Senator Bergstrom about that, and our other senators and representatives that support aerospace, such as Senator Racino and Senator Pugh. I think what we need to focus on, and what will really be our emphasis, and certainly with the task force that we are forming with Secretary Gatt's help, we have existing laws on trespass, on nuisance, on peeping toms. Those have always adapted to new technologies. Maybe the use of a manned aircraft, perhaps the use of some other technology. And lawyers and prosecutors, judges have found a way to apply those to these new technologies. You can already bring a lawsuit for invasion of your privacy. You can already be prosecuted whether you use some ingenious technical device or your person, if you're trespassing on someone's property, if you're creating a nuisance, etc. Those existing laws, well, I think there's a reluctance because of this new dynamic technology to think and a feeling that no, those won't work. I believe they will work. There's been several studies, there's been a number of law review articles. They will work. They will work with this new technology. So our goal henceforth and working with our task force is going to be to find that balance between enabling the use of drones and safeguarding public safety and privacy. Our goal is going to be creating the safest environment possible for drone operations through education and policy advocacy. That policy advocacy will not have an emphasis on regulations or creating more of a strict regulatory environment. Final comment about the state legislature. As you know, obviously, their one constitutional duty is to do a budget for the next fiscal year, so they wouldn't be adjourned right now if they had not done that. They did do that. That was in 3 different bills. They had to find some money, take some money. Unfortunately, they took $180 million from our sister agency, the Department of Transportation, to do this. But they did come up with a budget. They couldn't make some contributions to some of the retirement systems that they'd been doing over the years to shore up their actuarial soundness. So they didn't make those deposits this year. They did not take anything from the corpus of any of the retirement systems. But bottom line for us is they didn't take anything from us. And that's, of course, most relevant. So unlike 2014, when $3 million was taken out of our account, that didn't happen this time. And most likely it didn't happen because there's not much money there. We learned a hard lesson then. We don't have reserves now. It would be very hard for us to do a project indeed like the Enid runway extension, but we get our money committed. We get our money out for airport construction. That's how we spend money. There just wasn't money there to help them with the state budget. That I appreciate the work of our Air Force Division, Dr. Grayson, our grants administrator, Michelle. We got very serious after 2014. I vowed that would never happen again on my watch. And sometimes you can't control all that. So that was probably a pretty big vow, but we didn't happen this year. And I appreciate legislative leadership as well in that regard. Any questions with respect to state legislature and items I've covered?
Vic, do you see them coming back at all this year?
I do not, Commissioner Putnam. The governor vetoed the 3 bills I referenced, and they did override his vetoes as they announced. They had veto-proof votes on that when they came back into session Monday, I think about 2 weeks ago now. Governor is the only thing that would prompt them to come back is if the governor vetoed something that leadership really wanted to have become law. No one will, unfortunately, there is a bit of a gap between the governor and the legislature right now. They're having a little difficult getting a long period. I'm sure that will resolve itself at some point down the flight path here. But I see them, short answer, I do not see them coming back. They've done their work. I will move on to federal brief on Congress. We've talked about the CARES Act a lot, the relief for airlines, airports, and other aviation businesses, so I will not go back over that. There still are pleas for help, for assistance. There was a hearing before the United States Senate Commerce Committee last week. The Association of American Airport Executives, President and CEO, Airlines for America, and the Aerospace Industries Association all testified about I don't think any industry's been hit harder than aviation. It's just a fact. So there are still cries for additional relief. One of those is for relief for general aviation and business aviation from the fuel taxes. The ticket tax and fuel tax for commercial aviation was suspended in the CARES Act. I don't know that will happen a lot. There's a lot of debate about that because of concern for the Airport and Airways Trust Fund, the trust fund that funds the FAA, the Airport Improvement Program. That was in good shape until this. And it has taken that balance, that by the end of the year, that balance will be about zero. It was about 16 billion before all this began. There was the House passed what's known as the HEROES Act. It did, importantly for aviation and airports, it did authorize an appropriation from the general fund revenue into the Airport and Airway Trust Fund to offset declining revenues. That probably, it's one of those things Congress does when they write it. They don't put a number in. They refer to 7 other sections of the law. So you have to hire a lobbying firm and a couple of lawyers. But it's probably about 3.35 billion, which won't restore the integrity of the Aviation Trust Fund in any way. That bill will never become law. It will not get considered by the Senate. So we're not going to get any help for the trust fund from that bill. And I mentioned the effort, as you all know, right now, the taxes on fuel for general aviation is 21.9 cents for jet fuel, 19.4 cents for avgas, and there's a 14.1 cent per gallon surtax on fractional operations. Those under an effort that is ongoing. Senator Moran and our state up north is very a keen advocate of that to suspend those fuel taxes until the end of the year. I stand for any questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Questions? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Director. Item 6 is a new position to fill.
Yes, we I think all of you know we've had, if anything, but these are good. This is a good problem, a success problem with respect to our Aerospace and Aviation Education Program that annually funds about $300,000 in such programs across the state. And we have, as you know, Adam Fox left us recently. We really have, that's always been kind of two people, a person wearing 2 or more hats that's administered that program on behalf of the commission. Currently, the grants administration, just like airport grants administration, is being handled. Grant administration is being handled by Michelle Bowsen, our grants administrator. But we need someone to oversee the program. Not a full-time position, a part-time, what's referred to as a 999 employee in state government. So there would be no benefits paid with respect to this position. And I would ask for your approval to fill this position.
Okay, any questions? I need a motion.
And about how many hours a week are we talking about, Vic?
Well, what you would be talking about, Commissioner Putnam, is rough answer to that is 20 hours a week, part-time. That's why the typical state employee is viewed as about 1,900 and some odd hours annually. So this employee would be 999 or under. Now you certainly take, for example, when we're receiving grant applications by the end of this month, and then processing those, reviewing those, and then presenting them to the commission in August, probably those months might have a little more time. But then the following months could have less time. But this will also give us opportunities for something that we just haven't had because we've not had a person just focused on this. We've not been able to go out and actually, I don't want to use the word audit, it's probably, but review, look at the program. Is it achieving what it stated it was going to do? What is the expectation in our grant agreement with the grantee? We haven't sought other sources of funding. And I understand from you, and then it's my feeling as well. I think we've put about all we can into our Aerospace and Aviation Education Program. 300,000 is probably more than any of my peers, and we have been nationally recognized for our program. So it's something we're very proud of, but we've never really had the opportunity to seek other funding, which uniquely we can as a state agency. We can seek private funding, we can seek contributions. This will give us the opportunity to do that, and even other grants from NASA, other private station grants, nonprofit grants. We just haven't had the opportunity to do that.
Any concerns about your personnel budget for the year?
No, and Chris is going to get into this a little bit more. We have been very pleasantly surprised that our revenues are holding. We're still on vigilant watch. This is an unprecedented thing to our economy, except I guess the Great Depression, I would say. But so far, and I think it's because there are deals to be had out there, people are still buying aircraft. So now looking good. And so I would have, of course, a concern, Mr. Putnam, but I'm not alarmed in any way.
Okay.
Any other questions, concerns? Okay. Chris, oh, wait a minute. We've got an action here. Call the roll, please. Or I need a motion. I'm sorry. I need a motion.
I move for approval.
I'll second it. It's David Conway.
Andrea, please call the roll.
This is Andrea. Commissioner Potter.
Aye.
Commissioner Conway.
Aye.
Chairman Amos.
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam.
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Item 7 is our financial report. Chris?
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. The financial reports have been provided to you in the email you received from Andrea yesterday, and they're also available on our website. They're on the homepage. Starting with the financial summary document, as of April 30th, the Commission had an ending cash balance of $4.5 million, with encumbrances totaling approximately $5.4 million. Estimated revenues for the remainder of FY20 are $1.7 million, and outstanding reimbursements owed to the agency total $1.8 million, which leaves us with an available cash balance after encumbrances and expected income of $2.6 million. The amount of remaining expenditures in the airport construction program that could be incurred during this fiscal year total $2.5 million, provided those funds are available to proceed with the projects and that the grants are approved. Finally, our total year-to-date expenditures for FY20 were $4.8 million as of the end of April. Moving on to the income document, total statutory revenues deposited for the month of April totaled $69,547.91, and May's total was $506,851.74. Total statutory revenues deposited through May of this fiscal year total $4.31 million, which compares to $4.38 million for the same time frame last year. As Director mentioned, we'll continue to watch for possible declines in the coming months due to the unprecedented impact of COVID-19 and the drop in oil prices, but we are hopeful at this point. Finally, on the last slide in the 3-year average revenue document, you'll see that revenues collected this year from aircraft registration fees, excise tax, fuel tax collections, and specialty license plates is currently about $1 million less than what our 3-year average is the same time frame. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Great. Chris, thank you very much.
Chris, Mr. Chairman, excuse me just a moment. I have a question for Chris. Chris, I know you certainly covered it, but do you expect any issues to come up with respect to our cap, which is $4.5 million, with respect to our aircraft excise tax?
We'd have to get a pretty good amount the rest of this year to meet that. We've still got a pretty good balance there. It would certainly take close to unprecedented revenue in the final 2 months of those being deposited for us to meet that balance.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks, Chris. And by the way, if you don't have your aviation vanity plate, whoever's on this call, I encourage you to go out and have fun with a good vanity plate. Next item is the Pilot Shortage Committee. Commissioner Putnam?
I'll be able to speak on this, Commissioner Putnam. If you want to start out, or if you want me to just move forward, I can do it. Either way, your preference.
Go ahead, Grayson.
Okay. I'll go through it. When we get back to a in-person meeting, we will kind of do a walkthrough of the website when we're there, and we can actually show it up on the computer instead of just having a static slideshow. But the website is up and running. The beta version is out there. It's open for the public. I would encourage you all to go look at it on our website, just oac.ok.gov. In the top right portion, when the commission meeting documents aren't there, it'll be in the top right portion, just a button that says become a pilot, and or how to become a pilot, and that will kind of open you into our how to become a pilot portal. From there, there's several resources, middle school resources, high school resources, higher ed resources, scholarship opportunities. We moved a lot of the links on just some of the basic study materials for becoming a private pilot from the FAA's website. We moved that over onto this website. Again, the goal for this is to be the central clearinghouse. This is one of the main recommendations of the Pilot Shortage Committee, so that high school students, middle school students, the general public, if they wanted to become a pilot, could come utilize this area as a resource and a knowledge base for how to do that. And so it's going to be continually fine-tuned. We were on a call with Spartan Aeronautics a couple of weeks ago. Director and I were discussing pilot shortage issues, and they're looking at the website. We've visited with several of the university programs, and so if there's anything that the members of the public see here today, commissioners, if you see things that you want to see added or changed, we're more than open to it. This is a work in progress, but I think we have a pretty good foundation going for the pilot shortage website and how to become a pilot. So I'd encourage you all after this meeting to go take a look, see what you think. And then at some point this summer, we probably want to do some press when we get back to square one or start getting back to normal, do some press and make the world aware of our resource that we have published and we spent a lot of time on. I know this is kind of Adam's last hurrah before he walked out the door to El Reno. And so it's looking really good. Him and Sandra and a lot of the other staff here at the agency spent a lot of hours trying to get this up and running. So that's my report, commissioners, and I'll stand for any questions.
Appreciate it, Grayson. I know that General Whitcomb and his team over in, we're looking to that for some information. So I appreciate it very much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Commissioner.
Great. Thank you very much, Grayson. Let's see here. Next item is number 8, number 9, the 5-year plan. Grayson?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. 5-year plan, item number 9. As you will recall, I know Director and I and other staff joke that the March meeting seems like 100 years ago now. So much has happened between here and there. So wanted to bring this before you today as originally scheduled. This is the approval item for the FY 2021 to 2025 airport construction program. We do a lot of important things at the Commission. This might be probably one of the most important right here, planning and programming for our airport projects for the upcoming 5 years. Obviously, a lot of that's not changing. A lot of that 4 years are baked in. There's a few tweaks here and there. The big one is adding on the extra year that we discussed at the March meeting. And so before you today, I wanted to kind of brief you on a couple of the changes that have occurred since that meeting, since we've had our public comment period. During the public comment period, we didn't receive any formal comments. We had a couple of questions from some airport sponsors. Why isn't this project being shown? We always do. If there's an NPE only project, the state's not participating in, or doesn't involve any commission money, you won't see that particular project on our ACP. If it's just strictly between the airport and the FAA, you're not going to see our involvement in there. And so that's a lot of the questions that we get, or why isn't this project showing up on your ACP when on my individual airports plan, it's shown there. And so some of it's just kind of an educational resource. And we usually get about anywhere from a half dozen to a dozen of those questions every year when we go through this process. And so it's good to know that people are paying attention, good to know people are watching our ACP and studying it. And so very, very appreciative of that. So let's start the slideshow. We'll go to the next slide after this one. So we have two projects that were not part of the draft that we did not present to you last time that have been added based on some conversations, some studies. Both of those projects are for taxi lane development. The first project before you today that's new is at the Duncan Halliburton Airport. This is the project they already had scheduled to do some apron work with their NPE monies. And so we decided to add in a little commission money to build a taxi lane there south of that last hangar, the east-west taxi lane you see in the diagram. That's to help spur some development and some economic opportunities for that airport. They've had a bit of a changeover in the FBO and airport management leadership in a local company that's involved in some aerospace machining. Has taken the reins and really done some great things with the airport. Not that it wasn't a great airport before, but I think they're going to really be able to open it up and do some pretty neat things with this pretty good economic center there in Southwest Oklahoma. So total project cost a little over $1.1 million. Again, most of that was going to be originally funded by NPE monies that they already had planned. And then we're going to insert some money into the project for the taxi lane piece. And we're going to get some better bang for our buck because they're already going to have some quantities for concrete replacement when we do this particular project. So that's the first of two. Next slide. Next project is the Elk City Regional Business Airport. This is something very similar. Again, constructing a taxi lane. They have some interest in the local city, even building some of these big hangars. But they also have some private interest in building some hangars out there in western Oklahoma. Elk City's been one of our airports along the I-40 corridor that's really kind of gone from nothing to everything in the last 15 or 20 years. This was about a 3,500 foot runway back in the early 2000s. It's now up over 5,000 feet and has seen some significant increases in activity, especially as we know the oil industry is down right now. But as the oil industry increases, Elk City has been a very highly used airport by some of our oil companies as kind of a base of operations for western Oklahoma. So total project cost here just shy of $800,000, be paid for by a mix of FAA money, $300,000, commission money, $450,000, and then just shy of $40,000 of local matching shares. So those are the two new projects that we are including in the ACP. There's going to be some changes as we move on to the next slide. And so as the director was indicating to you in his presentation, the CARES Act did a lot of things for airports. Obviously, there is specific operational cost money, which we'll be talking about in a later agenda item, but there is also money that made all FY 2020 standard AIP grants 100%, which is good because that means that's less money that the OAC has to invest in that particular project because as you all know, we invest 5% or half a local match of those big rock discretionary and state apportionment projects that we've included in the airport construction program. And so any downturn in our revenues that we do see, we're already going to be a head start thanks to what Congress has appropriated. So what you see here before you are FY 2020 federal projects, which have state FY 2021 monies in them, that we are no longer going to have to be making that 5% match. This is just a list of those projects. Basically, start here from the first bullet, Ardmore Downtown, rehab the runway, install new LED lights and signs. That's going to save us about $50,000. When you see the FAA CARES Act money, that's the 10% match. So the savings to OAC is half of that. You just take that number and divide that by 2. Continuing on, the Jones Memorial Project, $272,000 of CARES Act, so it's going to be about do quick math here, $135,000 of savings for OAC. Ponca City, by far the biggest one. That's going to be about $375,000 worth of savings. Mid-America, this is a extended parallel taxiway project, about $75,000 of savings. There'll be a separate OAC project as part of that was not part of the AIP piece that will be contributing money to that project, but not the 5% to the AIP share. Seminole, which is phase 1 of the parallel taxiway realignment, construct a new taxi lane area. That's going to save us about $25,000. And we'll go to the next slide. Shawnee, this is a interesting project. It was actually funded partly by FAA supplemental discretionary from FY 2019 that was announced last December. There was going to be some FAA NPE money associated with this particular project. And obviously there's going to be some OAC money associated with it as well. That's going to save us about $25,000 from the CARES Act perspective. The SkyTook, which is to reconstruct the runway, it's going to save us about $100,000 due to the CARES Act. And then obviously our two grants that we get from FAA. So the system planning grant for various locations, as well as the system planning grant for phase 2 that we'll both talk about later in the agenda. That 10% we're not going to have to come up with. So that's going to save us $36,000 and about $22,000 respectively. So all total, if you look at the overall ACP document that was provided to you and to the public before the meeting, all total we're going to save anywhere from $800,000 to $850,000 due to the CARES Act and not having to make our 5% matches or 10% on the system plan grants that we get for these for next year. And so we're very glad about that. That's going to be significant savings to our revenue streams, which we do expect, although they seem to be holding steady now. We probably expect some kind of dip to come, whether that's now or maybe a year from now. At some point, the aircraft market will probably take a dip. And so this is helping us out with that dip by not having to incur some of these costs. Thank you to the FAA CARES Act in Congress. There's already been discussions about something similar happening for the FY21 grant cycle. As the director indicated in his remarks, we'll see if that happens and what gets passed through Congress later this summer and into the fall season. So those are the items that are changes, projects that are new, and I'll stand for any questions on that before we do a quick run through of the remaining FY21 to 25 slides.
Sounds like we have an unexpected windfall thanks to the CARES Act.
We do, and we are very grateful for that. And you know, if here's the wonderful thing, Commissioner Putnam, if for some reason our revenue stays the same and revenue keeps coming in, that's going to be an extra $800,000 that the state will then get to send into airport infrastructure elsewhere. Obviously, we won't know that until we get maybe 6 months or 12 months or 18 months on down the road. To see where we're at. But certainly if our revenues stay the same and we don't experience any downturn in our revenues, then yeah, we're going to get to invest some more money into the airport system thanks to the CARES Act.
Oh, that's great. I'm really glad to hear that.
That can be protected from the legislature taking it from us.
I believe we've done our job in that regard, I don't know if they're scrutinizing our financial records, but they don't have to dig very deep to see that our money's committed. We're in fact overcommitted. We don't have any money to spare. No hidden accounts in our revolving fund. Grayson, let me ask you, because I think I'm right about this. You'll correct me if I'm wrong. Our airport sponsors get to use their CARES Act grants to help them with their local match on 2019, or I guess older.
Correct. Yes. If an airport sponsor, and this regularly happens, FY19 grant was issued last September. due to the contractor or, whether it was schedule, weather, that project decided to roll through the winter. And a lot of times that happens, especially if it's asphalt related, and especially if it's north of I-40. If the project didn't get started in September, October, usually the contractor will roll it to the next spring. And so if a airport was experiencing a project that didn't start till maybe a month or two ago, and it was an FY19 grant, yes, they can use their FAA CARES Act operational monies that they've received to help make that match, because that's part of their operational costs. And so if they were fortunate enough to have that happen, then yes, they can certainly use their CARES Act operational money for FY19 grant matches. And I do know a couple of our airports are doing that right now as we speak. Well, if there's no other questions with the changes, we'll do a quick review of what is not changing. Next slide, please. This is just a rundown of the projects that are being added in or that were changed in the FY21 to 25 ACP that we presented to you back in March. No changes have been made to these projects since we presented them to you in March. I won't go read through each one of these. You can see them on the screen. I'll just read through the names of the airports. You have Ada, Blackville-Tonkawa, Clinton, El Reno, Fairview, and Frederick. So that's what you'll see here on this slide. Next slide, we have the Grove Regional Airport, Guthrie Edmond Regional, South Grand Lake Regional, Medill Municipal, Miami Regional, and then Pauls Valley Municipal. Just a quick review there if you want to take a look. Those are the projects. Again, none of these are changed since we presented to you in March, but I wanted to at least remind you of them since it has been a minute since March, and it feels even longer with the COVID-19 things that we're experiencing. So next slide. William R. Pogue, which is in Sand Springs, the Shawnee Regional Airport, the Stigler Regional Airport, the Tahlequah Municipal Airport, the Watonga Regional Airport, and the Thomas B. Stafford Airport in Weatherford, Oklahoma. And I think that, oh, nope, one more. So these are the last two, both in West Woodward, both projects. And so again, staff is recommending approval for all the changes that we've recommended, whether those changes happened back from the March meeting, whether those are the changes I presented to you today, or whether those are the changes that are happening due to the CARES Act. Staff recommends approval for the FY 2021 to 2025 airport construction program. And if there's any questions, I will stand for those or any comments. Thank you, commissioners.
Grayson, how many terminals do we have that have been built, and how many do we have that are in the works?
Mr. Chairman, if my memory serves me right, I believe the have been built number is 7. And I could probably list those off by the top of my head, but I can get those to you maybe at a later date. I don't know how my memory is working right now, but I believe the number is 7. And then the plan moving forward is that we usually have 1 terminal building per year in the airport construction program. So we have 5 years of ACP, and we'll have 5 years of, or 5 different terminals in that cycle. We have 1 under construction right now. That's the Lawton terminal. You all granted that back, I believe, last fall, and that's under construction right now. We're getting weekly progress reports on the Lawton terminal. So that's kind of the terminal perspective, Mr. Chairman.
What's the total? At the end of the whole program, how many will we have, or how many will we have built?
7 plus 1 plus 5, so that's was it 13? If my math is right. Yeah, so 13 at the end of this. At the end of 2025, we'll have 13 by that point.
Great.
And let me add a footnote there, if I can, Mr. Chairman, that I was thinking about that. My number was 7 too, but the ones that Durant, Shawnee, Ada, Muskogee, Enid, I can't think
Grove,
of
Goldsby,
and Gold. Yeah, that'd be probably the 7. But it's important to remember that our maximum contribution to those is 500,000, and in almost every instance, the local airport sponsor has invested much more in their new terminal building. So it's been a very successful program. Gosh, we started it, I don't know, probably 10 to 15 years ago, more than 10 and closer to 15.
Great. Any other questions? Okay, I need a motion.
I'll
I
move to
for
approve.
approval.
Second.
Second.
Andrea, please call the roll.
Thank you. This is Andrea. Commissioner Potter.
Aye.
Commissioner Conway.
Aye.
Chairman Amos.
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam.
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Motion carries.
Outstanding. Thank you, Andrea. Item 10 is the Airport Construction Grant Program, and with the magical words at the end, consent docket. Thank you, Mr. Director. Grayson?
Mr. Chairman, yes, item number 10, as you have so eloquently described, is the Airport Construction Grant Program consent docket. If any commissioner may request that any of all of these items be considered individually if they so desire. The plan here is just to read all the agenda items and discuss those, and then one vote will be taken at the end, unless, of course, a commissioner wants to pull one out. So we'll go for the first project. This is the Idabel Airport. This is a project that you all had previously approved, and we are experiencing some longer construction times due to, one, some of the rainy season that's down there, but also, two, some of the contractor issues that we've had. And so therefore, we need to do some line item adjustments due to liquidated damages. This will be moving construction amounts from the construction side over to the engineering side to cover inspection and construction administration. The amendment will not increase the commission's previously approved share, but staff does recommend approval for this grant amendment. Next slide. This project is for a design approval for a project that's in the commission's approved airport construction program at Seminole Municipal Airport. The project's going to be installing LED runway lights and LED pappies. Total project cost is going to be about $500,000, give or take. The design phase, which will do design, bidding, and any kind of survey or geotech work that may be needed for that project. $65,000 will be funded 95.5% with state funds, and obviously the sponsor matching funds at 5%. Staff does recommend approval for the approval of these design phase costs, as we have done in the past. Next slide. You can just see here's the diagram of the airport. Obviously, we're doing the runway lights, which will be down the length of the runway, and then the two little rectangles of red you see off to the sides, both left and the right of the runway. That's where the pappies will go. So that's just the overall concept of what that project's going to be looking like. Next slide. And also, before we get too far down the road, there's a ACP pages have been provided to you as well as the public. If you're already reviewing that, great. If not, you can certainly open these up to look at the individual ACP pages. Item C is a grant. This is a new grant for your consideration at the Alva Regional Airport. Project consists of installing omnidirectional approach lighting system. Total project cost, as you can see there, is just shy of $270,000. This will be a 95.5 project, 5% coming from sponsor matching funds, and the approval would be contingent upon the commission receiving an acceptable grant application based on bids, and these numbers are based on bids. So, next slide, you can see this project. This ODL system will be submitted or installed on the north end of the runway, crossing the road. That's probably why we see a little bit of increased cost there, is they do have to bury under the road for that last light station. This is something that the commission has put some emphasis on in the last 5 to 6 years. Wanted to make sure that airports, especially some of our more rural airports that have significant business jet traffic, can have their aircraft and their operations occur even during times of inclement weather. And these ODLs will provide some significant situational awareness. Although the ODLs may not decrease the actual minimums for what's on the instrument approach procedure, all of us that are instrument approach rated know that once you see the runway environment or specifically the approach lighting system, you can come down to lower than the minimums. So these will allow a pilot to be able to do that and be able to get in during times of inclement weather. So there is definitely benefits to putting these ODLs in. Pilots love them from every review that we've heard from the about 10 airports that have the ODLs across the state right now. And so we're just trying to plug holes that might be out there for airports that do not have an approach light system either at their airport or at a nearby airport. So we're trying to do some of the more rural airports to install these ODLs at. And I think Alva definitely qualifies. Their two closest ones are Woodward and Enid. So there's quite the hole there for Alva. Next slide. Next project is at the Chattanooga Sky Harbor Airport in southwest Oklahoma. This is a state-only airport. This is not an airport that's in the NIPIUS. This is probably our, I don't ever want to say best because we all love every airport, but this is probably the most populous and the busiest state-only airport that we have of the 9 that are in the system. It's got about 18 based aircraft, might be close to 20 now. This is to install new LED runway lights and do some repairs on the runway pavement, the apron pavement, the connector taxiway pavement. Total project cost is just shy of $500,000, as you can see there. Will be funded 95.5 with state grant funds and sponsor matching funds. And obviously we can't tap into any AIP, FAA monies because it's not in NIPIUS. We've tried back in Director Byrd and Dale Williams' days. They tried to get Chattanooga and Anadarko, I think maybe 2 or 3 times from the 2001 to 2009 time period before I came on board. And certainly gave it a valiant effort, but they just had a few too many hurdles with FAA, and we know those hurdles very well. We're trying to do with Kingfisher right now, trying to get Kingfisher into NIPIUS. So next slide, we can see the picture of the particular project. This is the airport. This is actually an old World War II air base facility. They have the triangle runways, and there's some good activity that goes on at the airport. They have an ag sprayer that comes there from time to time. And I believe they used to have a flight school. I don't know if the flight school is still active or not, but good stuff going on at this airport in southwest Oklahoma. Next slide. And I believe this is the last of the projects in this consent docket item. This is for the Ida Bell McCurtain County Regional Airport, the AWAS, installing a new AWAS system based on bids. We have just shy of $190,000, as you can see there. This will be a 95.5 proposition, and staff does recommend approval on this one as well. So I believe this is the last item. I see the action required. So staff recommends approval for this consent docket. And if there's any questions, I will stand for those or any comments. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners.
Okay, Grayson, thank you. Any questions, concerns? I need a motion.
So moved, Kevin Potter.
And a second.
Second, Jim Putnam.
Thank you. Andrea, please call the roll.
Commissioner Potter,
Aye.
Commissioner Conway,
Aye.
Chairman Amos,
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam,
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Great. Item 11 is the CARES Act grant offers. Grayson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Grayson Ardies. CARES Act grant offers, as Director Byrd indicated in his presentation, that even the unclassified airports will get something, although it is a small amount, $1,000 per airport. And we've made an application, and FAA has made us an offer for the CARES Act grant operational costs. And the 3 airports that we have under our purview, Carlson Landing Field, Fountainhead Lodge, and Lake Texoma State Park Airport. We're requesting approval from the Commission to accept these grant offers for these 3 airports for the total of $3,000 which will be funded obviously from CARES Act grant funds. So staff recommends approval to accept the grant offers. I'll stand for any questions.
Okay, any questions? I need a motion, please.
Motion to approve. Second.
Thank you. Andrea, call the roll.
Commissioner Potter,
Aye.
Commissioner Conway,
Aye.
Chairman Amos,
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam,
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Item 12, Grayson.
Item 12, Mr. Chairman, is the various locations grant that we do every year. This is for our preliminary engineering reports that we do in advance of large discretionary and state apportionment projects, also known as our big rock projects. Before you today are 4 PERs in environmental, Ada Municipal, Alva Regional, Clinton Regional, and the R.L. Jones Airport in Tulsa, as well as the environmental for Fairview. These are all projects that are in the ACP for years varying from FY22 to FY25. The item before you today is accepting an FAA grant offer. The total estimated cost is going to be $364,000. Obviously, this is one of those projects that we just discussed about that there will be no match needed from OAC because it is an FY20 project and the CARES Act is getting that. So that's the agenda item that you have before you today, and staff does recommend approval. We'll come back to you once we have scopes of work and finalized costs for each individual contract for the preliminary engineering reports, likely at the July meeting, so that you can approve those contracts. But this simply is an item for accepting the grant offer that FAA would send to us that we expect to get here in the next month for this particular project. So staff recommends approval, and I will stand for any questions.
Any questions? Okay, I need a motion, please.
I so move.
And a second.
Second from Commissioner Conway.
Thank you. Andrea, please call the roll.
Commissioner Potter,
Aye.
Commissioner Conway,
Aye.
Chairman Amos,
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam,
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, item 13 is the phase 2 of the plane grant. Grayson.
Item 13, Oklahoma Airport System Plan Grant Phase 2. We've already had Phase 1 grant last fall offered to us and approved by you all. This is Phase 2 because we could not get all the money we needed to do the system plan. Phase 2 is going to be about $221,000, as you can see there on the agenda item. And again, just like the various locations grant, this will be 100% funded, no OAC match required because of the CARES Act. You'll see in the next item that we'll be doing the approval for the contract, but this is Phase 2 grant offer, accepting a grant offer, provided FAA issues us a grant offer for the airport system plan that we're going to be updating. It was last updated since 1999. So I'll stand for any questions, but staff recommends approval.
Great. I need a motion.
So moved. Kevin Potter.
Second.
Second.
Andrea, please call the roll.
This is Andrea. Commissioner Potter,
Aye.
Commissioner Conway,
Aye.
Chairman Amos,
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam,
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. And then item 14 is the system plan update. Grayson.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. This is Grayson. As we were just describing, the commissions use this Oklahoma Airport System Plan basically in every walk of life. I won't call it the Bible, but it has been our backbone of how we have invested in the airport system in Oklahoma for the last 20 years. Created in 1999 by Texas Transportation Institute. George Drescher, director, correct me if I'm wrong. Is that name right? But I think it was concocted by George Drescher in concert with Dale Williams.
That's correct.
Okay.
Goes back to Bob Jardee even.
Yeah.
Now, except maybe Chairman Amos.
But it's really been the plan of how we develop the system. And it hasn't been just how do we expand the system. We've actually done some really good things of being fiscally responsible. We've taken airports out of the system. I believe that number is into the low teens now, 14 or 15 airports that have been removed from the system since it was created in 1999. Some of those were nippiest airports. Some of those were tough. Lake Murray is one that stands out in my mind. There's others out there that were not so tough that came out fairly easily. And no doubt that our system plan that we're considering here today will look at that same opportunity as well. Are there duplications within the system? Are there airports that need to come out? Are there airports that could be combined? You know, is there an airport that maybe there's three kind of average or below average airports, and we could combine those airports into one really good airport? That's an opportunity for this system plan to look at. But really what this system plan is going to be doing is it's going to be taking a look, okay, where are we going to be in 2040? So where are the next 20 years going to take us? How are we going to invest to get there? What are the infrastructure items that we need to plan on? For the last 20 years, we've spent a really good chunk of our money upgrading safety areas, meeting standards with parallel taxiways, meeting standards with runway width and lengths. We've done a really good job in the last 10 years of upgrading our electrical items. And so we have checked a lot of the boxes from the 1999 system plan. And so we need to figure out what are the new boxes we need to check? What are the things that are coming forward? Is it going to be an integration with UAS and an eVTOL aircraft? Is there going to be a need for a new navigational system at airports? Is there going to be a need for new electrical systems at airports? Is there going to be a need for runway extensions, maybe length reductions, width reductions, so on and so forth? And that's really what a system plan is going to look at, looking at the roles of your airport within the system and how does that meet the needs of the state and the communities in the state, and where is that going to take us for the next 20 years? Because we know aviation is constantly changing. We've seen that right now in the last 2 or 3 months. And obviously that will be taken into account, the COVID-19 situation. How is that going to impact the long-term health of the aviation system? And so that's what's before you today, commissioners. The total cost of the project is about $667,000. We have conducted the RFQ. We have selected a consultant. We have negotiated the scope and fee to a reasonable amount. And we are requesting that you approve the director to sign a contract for this particular project, which will be funded by FAA from phase 1 and phase 2, which was just recently approved. So with that being said, this is one of those monumental things that we've done. The economic impact study, which we started about 5 years ago, the payment management system, which we started about 3 years ago, and then if you so approve, we'll be starting the Oklahoma Airport System Plan update. These are kind of the 3 major planning documents that a state can do, and we are going to be ushering our state hopefully into the very, very exciting 21st century moving forward. So I'll stand for any questions. Staff recommends approval.
Grayson, how long does this update take? How long is the contractor going to be working on it?
Likely it'll be an 18-month project, Commissioner Putnam. Probably give or take 4 months. So I'd probably put the range at 14 to 22 months would be the length of time. A lot of that's going to be survey, going out to airports, visiting with airports in person, visiting with airports virtually, and kind of discussing with them what their current base of operations are, where they expect to go in the future, where have they been in the past to help us figure out where they're going in the future. And quite frankly, I think we will have a lot of participation, provided you all want to be a part of it, a lot of participation from the commissioners. I I don't know if any of you have been around, maybe Chairman Amos, but we did regional planning meetings where we'd go to a quadrant of the state, invite all the airports to that specific spot, centrally located. Enid, for example, if we were going to Northwest Oklahoma, we'll probably do that again, and would encourage any and all of you to come, not just even if it's within your district, to come and see what those regional planning meetings would look like, or join us for a discussion at maybe an OAOA annual conference, which I'm sure we're going to hit at least one, maybe two of those during the time period the consultant's working on this particular project. So short answer long there, Commissioner Putnam, about 14 to 22 months is where I put the range.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
No, Mr. Chairman, quick note to Grayson's very good presentation on this. We did an internal tweak of our system plan probably sometime between 2005, 2007. Most of our peers might update these every 5 years, certainly at 10 years. So we're due. We've been very thrifty with respect to federal or state funds, and it's coming at a good time given 100% funding. Correct, Grayson?
Yes, that has been one bright spot in all the negative that COVID-19 has provided us.
I've got a comment. I've been watching the actions of OAC staff for 24 years, and Grayson, Vic, and the rest of the staff, man, you guys run a really efficient, tight ship. And back in the day, it's a completely brand new, well-oiled machine compared to what it used to be back in the day. And I applaud you guys.
Appreciate that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I need a motion, please.
I move for
I'll
approval.
move to second.
Call the roll.
This is Andrea. Commissioner Potter.
Aye.
Commissioner Conway.
Aye.
Chairman Amos.
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam.
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Motion carries. Okay, item 14 is the education grant program.
Mr. Chairman, yes, item 15, the aviation education grant before you today is a amendment to the scope of something you all had previously approved. It was for the Oklahoma Education Industry Partnership Day. This is something that's been around for many years. It's been Ben Robinson, General Ben Robinson, Secretary Ben Robinson, however we want to address him, is kind of his brainchild that he started up, I think maybe 7 or 8 years ago now, to get teachers together with aviation industry professionals to allow those professionals to educate the educators to be able to bring back the opportunities of aviation aerospace to the classroom. And so this is, it started off, I think, just about 50 teachers getting together on an annual basis, and now we're up over 200 and 300 teachers. They've even expanded it. It's been it started off as just aviation aerospace, and then they were able to take it on to other industries as well. Aviation aerospace still gets its full day in the limelight, but they've taken it off to oil and gas, I think biomedical, and others. And so it's a great thing for Oklahoma, allowing these teachers. Obviously, the events that were planned to take place this summer are not going to happen in person, but they still want to have a program, and they're still planning on doing that for the teachers. And so that's what this request before you today is to change from the in-person training to a virtual training opportunity. You originally approved $10,000. They're only requesting $3,700 under the new scope. It'll still be the same items, which are going to be grants for teachers and supplies to take back to the classrooms after they've learned what they've learned during the training. And so staff recommends approval for the change in scope for this particular project, and I will stand for any questions.
So to summarize, we're going from 10K down to 3,700.
10K to 3,700, and we're going from in-person to virtual.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, I need a motion.
Commissioner Conway, I move to approve.
Kevin Potter, second.
Andrea, call the roll, please.
This is Andrea. Commissioner Potter,
Aye.
Commissioner Conway,
Aye.
Chairman Amos,
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam,
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
Thank you all. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrea. And item 16 is the concluding remarks. Director Byrd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Something I overlooked, but certainly want to report on is the fact that there was a bill this session to reverse what we had accomplished back in the 2018 session with respect to the exemption for charter aircraft from the aircraft excise tax. We were the only state in the union up until what we did in 2018 that if you simply stated you were a charter, that was good enough. That you actually had operations was not required. We joined the rest of the states, and only 20 states allow for this, that at least 50% of your operations had to be charter. That seems more than fair. There was an effort to repeal that. That did not pass this session. Very, very important to us. We're losing quite a lot of funding that way. As I predicted, I've gotten a couple of text messages about my epiphany with respect to drones. So I appreciate my good friends, Jamie, Jacob, and others. Jamie's an all-star when it comes to drones and UAS and knowledge and what they're doing up at OSU. So we look forward to working with you and partnering in the future. And I would be absolutely remiss if I did not thank Secretary Gatz for his support overall, but certainly his support and the support of his audio and visual or video staff to help us to put on this commission meeting by way of video conference. Could not do it without them. So thank you very much. That concludes my comments, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. I want to bring to everyone's attention a very cool project that's going on at the Guthrie Airport. There's a group of gentlemen that have been restoring an old A-26 Invader at the airport. And we were up there a couple of weeks ago, and it looked like it's absolutely ready to fly. The propellers were off, but because they were getting them overhauled and balanced. But I understand they're on the airplane, and the first flight is imminent. And I'd like to see if the OAC could highlight that project at some level with a press release or, you know, an addition onto the website or something. It's you know, a very rare airplane, and a whole lot of love, money, and time has gone into the restoration of that. And it's a very cool project. And in this day of quarantining and sitting at home on a Saturday morning, it'd be a great little road trip to go check it out. And they may very well fly it this weekend. I tried to call up there this morning and find out what the schedule is, but no one answered the phone. So the first flight is very soon.
Mr. Chairman, we'll put that item on a future agenda for discussion and consideration.
Okay. All righty. Well, our next meeting is July the 8th at 10 o'clock. And hopefully it'll be at ODOT. We've made lots of compromises, and everybody is tired of sitting at home. And, you know, I actually need a haircut, but in the spirit of compromise, I'm looking forward to having the real gavel back at ODOT. But in the meantime, I'm using my meat tenderizer in a nice little box here, and we are adjourned.
Mr. Chairman, if you could hold on just a moment there. We actually need a process for adjournment. Item 18.
So moved, Kevin Potter.
Hang on. Sorry, sorry, Mr. Potter. Let me help this along. Chris Wadsworth, I'd like to recognize you for a statement.
Thanks, Director. I just want to report that the public video and audio connection has been monitored throughout this meeting, and I've been told that it has been maintained without any issues.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, this is Director Victor Byrd. The time is now 11:29 a.m., May 20th, 2020, and we are ready to conclude this meeting that has occurred by way of video conference and teleconference.
Well, I'll just look forward to the opportunity to bang the gavel one more time. Now we're adjourned.